Hi, my name is Abraham Lincoln, but some people call me Abe. I was the 16th President of the United States, but I wasn't born rich and my father wasn't in politics. I was born on February 12th, 1809. I'm in Kentucky. I moved to Indiana when I was 8. I only went to school for 1 year. When I was 9. That was a hard time. When I was 19, I became a faculty. I took a 3,000-mile trip to New Orleans. I made money, but I gave it all to my father until I was 21. I read a lot of law books when I came back, and I became a lawyer. I was a kind lawyer for 20 years before I was president. I got married to Mary Todd in November of 1842. We had 4 children, but one of them died during the time I was raising my children and being a lawyer. There was a slavery question in America. The northern states didn't want slavery in the western states, western territory. Here is part of my speech. I made a speech against the spread of slavery. Here is part of my speech. I believe this government cannot endure permanently, half slave and half free. It will all become one thing or all the other. I ran for Senate but lost. My wife Mary believed I would be president one day. I traveled the country making speeches, and on November 6, 1860, I was elected president. My wife was right after all. When people started to hear I was elected a Republican president, the southern states started gathering up to form their own country. It was a terrible time. We were going to war with ourselves. Right before we left for Washington, Jefferson Davis was elected president of the new Southern Confederacy. In April, the Civil War officially began. 2 years later, I wrote the Emancipation Proclamation. A few years after that, the 13th Amendment made all slaves free. That made all them able to fight in the war for freedom. The biggest battle of the war was at Gettysburg. The Northern Army nearly won, but the Southern managed to escape. Afterwards, I gave one of my most famous speeches, the Gettysburg Address. The war continued, and I was re-elected for another term as president. I felt like the cheeriest man on earth. Thankfully, on April 3rd, 1865, the Union soldiers captured the southern capital, and 6 days later, the Confederate generals surrendered. The long war was finally ended. Nearly 2,300,000 men had fought. It was time to put the country back together. That weekend, I decided to take Mary to a funny play at Ford's Theater. While we were there, a drunk, angry actor named John Booth snuck into our box and shot me. I was taken to a little boarding house across the street, and I died there the next morning. I am Abraham Lincoln, and I want you to remember that I made a difference by ending slavery in the United States and by working to keep our nation together when it was being torn apart.
Very good. Can I ask you, what were you proudest of? What were you proudest of that you did during your life?
Trying to stop slavery.
Well, that was a really good speech.